Hey everyone, I'm Dan Deppen. Welcome to the Note Investor Podcast. And today I'm joined by Brett Synicky from Sense Financial. Brett, how you doing?
Doing well, Dan. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. I was excited to have you on because a lot of people ask me questions about self-directed IRAs. And while I've had one for many years, that's not really like my area of expertise. Like I know some high level basics, but there's a lot to it. So thanks for doing this. So maybe you can just start by, giving us a little bit of background on you and what it is you do.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So I was born on, no, I'm just kidding. We won't go that
Yeah.
far back. The I really got, let me talk about my real estate career because I had a nine to
Mhm.
five up until about 2012, but I'm not going to bore everybody with that story. So my grandfather, my father, and myself have all been buy and hold real estate investors, primarily from a real estate investing perspective. And so I really cut my teeth on that, helping my dad with his rentals that he owned locally here in Southern California. And my brother and I would go and help him paint or unclog toilets, whatever tenant turnover required at that time. And so he groomed me to be able to invest in real estate as well. And so I had this great nine to five that, and this is, by the way, this is like the mid 2000s when this is going on as far as me acquiring my own rentals. And so anybody who could fog a mirror during that time could get a loan, right?
So
Between
this is
like,
like like just like pre-financial crisis
pre-financial
time frame.
crisis, man.
Yeah.
So I got all these 10-year interest onlys. I mean, I would do it differently if I could go back for sure. But nevertheless, I bought a bunch of rentals, and I was going to a investment club here in Southern California that was meeting in, I think, Newport, Costa Mesa area at the time, and I met there. I met Dmitry Fomachenko. This is like 2005. Dimitri was working for this investment club at the time, and they actually tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, we hear about these self-directed IRAs. We'd really love if you could figure out how to do this because we have all these clients that want to invest in real estate, and some of them already are, but now they're asking about doing it inside their retirement account." And we don't have anybody to go to. It was, the self-directed IRA has been around since 1974, so it's not new. Solo 401k 2002, so it's fairly new compared to that. But still, even in the mid 2000s, not a lot of people knew about this. And so Dimitri, working for this company, started to help people establish these self-directed IRAs. And then fast forward a couple years in 2010, he broke off from that company and started Sense Financial. And so I did not start with him at that time. I was working, got my real estate license in 2014. And so I was primarily selling residential real estate here in the Southern California area until November of 2023 when Dimitri and we've been talking for a while, but he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, would you like to come on as a consultant for me at Sense Financial and help people understand what it's like to establish these, one of two plans, the self-directed IRA or the solo 401k?" And so that was November of 2023, and I really haven't looked back since. So I gave you a very condensed version of my
Yeah.
of my history, but I wanted to kind of preface it with how long I've known Dimitri, who started Sense Financial back in 2010. So
Well, we don't need to dive into it far, but curious, like what was your day job before you started really focusing on real estate?
yeah, I was the store manager of a giant retail chain store that originally was not part of CVS, but got acquired by CVS in 2008. And I
Mm.
started there in high school in 1997, and I kept working my way up until I became a store manager, and I was there about 15 years
Hmm.
at different stores. So.
Yeah, very cool. So then like how do you like I mean maybe you can start by giving people like the basics of the IRAs and solo 401ks and I was also interested in like the difference between the solo 401k and how those work.
Yeah, no, happy to. So, I think if we could only do solo 401k, we would. It is a superior product in a lot of ways. The challenge is, and the reason we also do the self-directed IRA is because not everybody is self-employed, right? And so the solo 401k has this self-employment requirement attached to it, and it's primarily for the business owner and their spouse, hence the word solo. And it also works for partnerships, non-spouse partnerships or multi-member LLC businesses where they're not related or not married to each other. That it also works in those situations, but you can't have any non-owner employees. And
Hmm.
you can't have any full-time W-2s outside of yourself and a spouse if it's not like that partnership or multi-member LLC I was talking about. So that's one major difference. So we do the self-directed IRA because just about anybody can do one.
Yeah.
Now, typically, the self-directed IRA is generally speaking, most people roll existing funds into it because the annual contribution limits are 7,000 if you're under 50 and 8,000 if you're over 50. So it's hard to start out from zero, establish a self-directed IRA, and then invest in what most of our clients are looking for, and that's non-Wall Street assets, right? And don't
Hmm.
misunderstand me. You could invest in some crowdfunding opportunity with $1,500, a couple thousand. I mean, there are things out there. But when we're on a discovery call with somebody and they say, I want to buy real estate in my retirement account, and I have $3,000 and I want to do a self-directed IRA, we're going to push back a little bit and say, you know what, maybe grow that a little bit more because it probably doesn't make sense right now. Of course, if they insist, we're going to help them out, but I want to give them the best guidance possible. And we're not just out to bring on a client for no reason, right? We want them to be able to
Hmm.
invest. So I digress, but the self-directed IRA is literally for just about anybody who wants to self-direct into non-Wall Street assets. And then the solo 401k has that self-employment requirement attached to it, among other differences too.
Gotcha. Can you roll money between like a self-directed IRA and a solo 401k?
So any qualified retirement account can go into either one of those plans, right? You can go IRA to IRA. You can go
Hmm.
401k to IRA. The only exception is with the solo 401k, the Roth IRA cannot transfer or roll over into a 401k. A
Hmm.
Roth 401k is fine, 401k to 401k, but if somebody wants to self-direct a Roth IRA, it must become a self-directed Roth IRA. That's the only way to do it. So,
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, this show is like my opportunity to ask questions because I have a self-directed IRA and I'm self-employed and I've been thinking about the self-directed or the solo 401k, but I don't want to start with like $7,000 because as you pointed out, that's kind of challenging to
right,
do.
right.
So one question I get sometimes like, so if someone says, okay, I'm going to open up the self-directed retirement account, am I going to move money over from some existing retirement account? Do they have to move the whole thing or like how much should they move over?
Mm, good question. No, they don't. There's no limit to the amount of rollovers or the dollar amounts that they can do. The IRS allows you could do one today and one tomorrow and one next week if you wanted to. Um, I would say I wouldn't even say the majority of our clients move their entire thing. Maybe 50-50. It's hard to say.
Hmm.
The reason it's hard for us to say is because we don't have insight on their entire financial picture outside of what they tell us, right? And so
Hmm.
we don't know that they have an IRA at Vanguard with $500,000 unless they say, I have an IRA at Vanguard with $500,000. Now, we may have insight on what they roll over because they seek our guidance on it, but clients, all of our plans have what's called checkbook control. So with the IRA, you still have to go through the custodian for transfers or rollovers. But with the
Hmm.
solo 401k, the client is the plan administrator, so they don't have to go through anybody except for themselves and the current custodian with the funds they want to roll into the 401k to roll that money in. So they don't need to talk to us to do that. But
Hmm.
the answer is no, you don't have to roll it all in. That's the short answer.
Okay. And so you mentioned checkbook IRA. So what and versus so what's the difference between a checkbook IRA and like a custodian managed IRA, if that's even the right terminology?
Yeah, it's not incorrect.
Hmm.
IRS still requires a custodian with an IRA. You can't avoid that. And they come into play. in rollovers, distributions, Roth conversions. Um, there's one that I'm missing right now. I guess just the establishment. There's something else. Anyway, so they're really kind of on the outskirts with a checkbook control account when it comes to investing because they're there, but all the funds are actually held in a special purpose LLC, which is what allows the client to bypass the custodian when making investments because they are the manager of the LLC, which gives them that manager power to make investments, sign on behalf of the plan or the LLC rather, and
Hmm.
bypass the custodian. Um, Also with the uh, LLC. So when let me back up a little bit. So when somebody establishes an account, we open the custodial account and we open the checking account. We help them with that. And then the money rolls from an existing custodian to the new IRA custodian that allows for non-Wall Street assets. So it's held in a custodial account. And then once the checking account and the LLC is all established, the money then moves. The custodian takes care of this, by the way. The client doesn't have to do it, but
Hmm.
the money moves from the custodial account into that LLC checking account. And then that's at which point they can start to self-direct it. So all assets, everything that's done is actually done inside the LLC. Real estate is owned, the title is taken in the name of the LLC. And oh, I know what I was going to say. The
Hmm.
IRA is the single member of the LLC, and that's it. And then the client is the manager of the LLC. A non-member manager is what they are.
Okay, so the IR or the retirement account owns it, but you kind of manage it. And then
That's
what
right.
do you need to know to manage that to stay out of trouble? Because I know there's a lot of rules around
Con-
what you can do with those.
Contrary to popular belief, having a full custodial account, like you were referencing, where you
Hmm.
do have to go through the custodian for all investments. All investments are held, FBO for your retirement account in the name of the custodian. It doesn't actually put a second set of eyes on the investments. Some people think that the custodian is going to say, hey, this is a good idea or a bad idea. I'm sure if they got wind that you were going to invest with your father, which is a disqualified party, they would tell you you can't do that. But
Hmm.
largely, they will do what you tell them to do. Okay. So when it comes to the checkbook control or even custodial, it's important to know who the disqualified parties are, your immediate family, you and your immediate family, you, your spouse, your parents, your grandparents, your children, and their spouses. So just the like lineal descents like this,
Hmm.
brother, sister, aunt, uncle, that's all fine. But you just can't invest with those people and they can't benefit from the account. They can't perform services on the account or anything that the account owns is a better way of saying that. So like if my IRA owns a rental property, I can't swing the hammer and neither can those other people I mentioned, but I can hire the person that's going to swing the hammer. So
Okay.
you can do white collar work is okay, blue collar work is not okay, is the easiest way to say it. Um, and then, so it's really important to know, okay, who can I invest with and who can't I? Honestly, if it's arm's length, you're fine. Like just keep it arm's length and you really won't have to ask any other questions. Um,
Hmm.
and so that's the easiest way to say it. But yeah, disqualified parties and prohibited transactions are the things to be aware of. Really, anything except for collectibles and life insurance can be invested in, and then those disqualified parties that I mentioned.
Oh, so can you mix basically like traditional Wall Street products, stocks and things with real estate
You
within there?
can. Yeah, you can. The IRA is a little more difficult to do that, especially if you have a checkbook control IRA, because the brokerages, Vanguard, Fidelity, all the brokerages we know of and we've heard of, do not allow IRA owned LLCs to open up brokerage accounts
Hmm.
anymore. You used to be able to go to Fidelity or Vanguard and say, hey, I want to open up a non custodial, non prototype, is what it's called, meaning there's no tax reporting or anything on it because it's in another plan. But
Hmm.
I want to invest my self directed account into Wall Street through your brokerage platform. You used to be able to do that up until 4 or 5 years ago. And then
Hmm.
for whatever reason, they stopped allowing that. Tasty Trade is a brokerage that still, from what I've been told, actually allows IRA owned LLCs and IRA owned trusts to open brokerage accounts. Um,
Hmm.
and so you would be able to kind of keep the money within the IRA plan, the LLC or the trust, and invest in Wall Street and whatever else you want.
Uh-huh.
But the easiest way to do it with the IRA is to either leave money in the existing plan that you rolled money out of and just leave it in Wall Street, or you have to like transfer money from the self-directed custodian back to like Fidelity as an example if you want to invest in Wall Street. Or you can
Yeah.
check out Tasty Trade and maybe do it within the plan, right? Does that make sense?
No, that does. Yeah. It sounds like because the way I have mine now, I have my self-directed IRA and then I have a traditional
And
IRA
then
as well.
now on the flip side with the solo 401k, you can go and open up a brokerage account at any brokerage you want in in the name of the solo 401k. They all allow
Hmm.
it. It's much more flexible that way.
Okay. And then like, so what happens if I do a transaction that's not allowed? Like if it's with an unauthorized person or it's not arm's length, like let's say I sell a note that I own in my LLC to my retirement account. Like what are the implications of that?
Mm. Well, if it's the IRA, it could disqualify the entire thing and cause it to be distributed, right? If you're under 59
Hmm.
and a half, that's going to be penalties and taxes. So you really want to stay away from that, especially in the IRA. There's a custodian involved. It's much more regulated.
Hmm.
The solo 401k is a little more forgiving. It can be reversed in some situations, but we encourage our clients to obviously not do that. But if they have to ask the question, it's
Yeah.
first of all, it's probably not a good idea if you have to ask. Second of all, ask us first before making an investment of that sort. We haven't had, maybe two clients in 15 years I've heard of that did something stupid
Hmm.
and got audited because of it. But I mean, I'm talking thousands of clients, and it's happened twice, and that's because they just didn't follow the instructions that we provided them. But we
Right.
we we do a good job with education. We're very clear about who you can invest with and who you can't, and so I think our
Hmm.
clients are well equipped with that knowledge. So
No, that makes sense. And then you mentioned 59 and a half. So like in general, like what changes when you hit 59 and a half?
yeah, so you can take distributions from your traditional or Roth account. When I say traditional, I mean pre-tax, right? So
Hmm.
for anybody out there, it's pre-tax, you're saving on the taxes today, you're putting that money in tax deferred, but when you take it out at retirement time, 59 and a half or older, then it becomes taxable income. Whereas on the other side of things, if you make Roth contributions, then you're paying taxes on it today, but not at retirement. So it's kind of the opposite. I always say the more money in Roth, the better, because those are tax-free ATM withdrawals when you retire. But at 59 and a half, you can distribute money to yourself, and it's either going to be earned income in the traditional pre-tax account, or it's
Hmm.
going to be not taxable because it's from a Roth. So
Right. And you would have paid it previously
exactly,
if
exactly.
it was in a Roth. And then, so and maybe this is a big topic, but maybe tell us how like UBIT works. It's something that I've had people ask me about as well. I've never run into it because in my self-directed IRA, I just buy performing notes and
Mhm.
hold on to them. I'm not trying to do other things. Maybe talk about just like even what that is.
Yeah. So UBIT is triggered. First of all, it stands for Unrelated Business Income Tax, and it's triggered in a couple different ways. In an IRA, if the IRA owns real estate and there's a mortgage on the real estate, there's leverage, the income derived from the property because of the mortgage, so 50% financed, then 50% of the income is going to trigger what's actually called UDFI, which is unrelated debt finance income, which actually triggers the UBIT tax, the unrelated business income tax. So leveraged real estate in an IRA is one way it triggers. Solo 401k is exempt from UBIT on leveraged real estate. So another reason why
Oh,
we like the solo 401k more, especially when it comes to actually owning the hard asset of real estate inside your retirement account. Um, And then the second way is if you're running a business inside the retirement account, right? Like if you can flip a bunch of houses, you can own a dry cleaners, your IRA can own a dry cleaners or your 401k, but all the income from that active business is going to be subject to this UBIT tax, and it scales up to 37% when you get to about $12,500 of income for the year. So it can be pretty hefty depending on the numbers. Now, you actually can deduct expenses and on real estate depreciation and such on that same percentage that is representative of the mortgage. It is a complex topic, and you certainly need to kind of know how to calculate all those numbers and work with a good tax advisor, of course. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense to own real estate in your IRA. You just have to know, like, hey, the IRA is going to have to file a tax return of some sort because there's going to be leverage on it, unless you buy it with cash,
Right.
obviously. So, yeah,
Right. But if you're not leveraging, then it doesn't apply. So if you had enough
correct.
funds in the account to buy a whole piece of real estate, you could do that.
That's right. That's right. And syndications can trigger this also because you're a limited partner in a syndication apartment complex in some
Mm-hmm.
cases. And it doesn't usually trigger for the first 2 to 3 years because there's so many losses that are being reported and the cost segregation and everything else. But after that time, you have to know what the numbers look like because you got to not only have enough money in the IRA to pay the tax, but you really should know what it's going to be, right? So
Yeah, and you mentioned that for the solo 401k, UBIT doesn't apply to leverage. Did you say does that apply to if you run a business out of it in a solo 401k, or is that different?
it does. Yeah, it's only exempt from UBIT on leveraged real estate. That's it.
Okay, got it, got it. So I guess I'll ask you like, so what other things are important for people to consider that I haven't asked you about yet
I
when they're
think,
looking at setting these up?
yeah, I think what do they want to invest in? Right? This is one of the questions we always ask on our discovery calls, not only to get a feel for, I mean, it's really we want to guide them in the right direction. And we ask them the balances of the existing plans they have. We ask them what they want to invest in. And part of that is because, okay, well, this is a good idea or it's not. And we want to be able to tell them that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think one thing, if I had to give one piece of advice, is invest in what you know and what you're comfortable with. I'm not saying don't educate yourself and maybe stretch the envelope a little bit there, but don't come in and roll over your 401k from your employer you just left and it's all your retirement money and it's $100,000 and don't come in and throw it all in Bitcoin. Okay, don't do that. Now with the checkbook controlled account, you can do that. Okay. It's a lot of freedom. It's kind of like the wild, wild west. You don't have to come to us and get approval for that. You could just do it. But my
Yeah.
advice is don't do that if you have no idea what you're doing with crypto or and I don't know anything about crypto. I've never invested in it, but it's like this hot topic right now that people keep bringing up. So,
Oh yeah.
that's why I use it as an example. So,
See, now we get comments from all the people that say you should have all your money in crypto all the time. Like, how crazy are you, Brett, for not doing that?
most of our clients want to do real estate. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. They
Yeah.
want to either be a private lender like yourself, or they want to invest in the hard asset of real estate as a rental property, maybe do a couple flips a year. Because if you do a couple, you can kind of fly under the radar of the UBIT. Once you get
Mhm.
up to, beyond a couple, it can trigger UBIT. But, but honestly, private lending is probably the most favored way, with the hard asset of real estate being maybe a close second. So,
Ah, that all makes sense. So, well, Brett, thanks so much for sharing all that. How can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more?
yeah, appreciate it. Well, our website is probably the best place. Sense Financial, like common sense, sensefinancial.com. Lots of good resources. There's several different places to book a complimentary consultation if they want to talk through their situation. It's not going to be a hard sale. It's just a education, and we just want to help kind of maybe guide them in the right direction. If it makes sense to become a client, great. If not, they'll leave with something information they didn't have for sure. So,
All right, very cool. All right, well, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
thank you.